This is You've Already Been Hacked, recorded on 23 January 2021. The past couple of weeks, we took our focus off of the news, but that doesn't mean bad things haven't been happening. So let's get into it. With our Solarwinds updates, Fireeye has released a tool for auditing networks for techniques used by Solarwinds. They released this tool last week and a report detailing the techniques used by Solarwinds hackers inside the networks of companies they breached. The tool is available on GitHub and named the Azure AD Investigator. That Fireeye says can help companies determine if SolarWinds hackers, also known as UNC 2452, used any of the techniques that the tool knows about inside their networks. The report is a 35-pager and details in great depth post-initial compromise techniques along with detection, remediation, and hardening strategies that companies can apply. However, if you want to save some time, here's some of it that's summarized for you. One of the techniques is that SolarWinds steals the Active Directory Federation Service token signing certificate and uses it to forge tokens for arbitrary users. This allows attackers to authenticate into a federated resource provider, such as Microsoft 365, as any user without the need for that user's password or their corresponding multi-factor authentication mechanism. It also details that SolarWinds modifies or adds trusted domains in the Azure AD to add a new federated identity provider that the attacker controls. This would allow the attacker to forge tokens for arbitrary users and has been described as an Azure AD backdoor. SolarWinds also compromises the credentials of on-premises user accounts that are synchronized to Microsoft 365 that have high privilege directory roles, such as the global administrator or application administrator. And the fourth one is the hijacking of an existing Microsoft 365 application by adding a rogue credential to it in order to use the legitimate permissions assigned to the application, such as the ability to read email, send email as an arbitrary user, access user credentials, etc., while bypassing multi-factor authentication. But wait, we're not done with SolarWinds. A fourth malware strain has been discovered of SolarWinds. Symantec said this past week another malware strain that was used during the SolarWinds supply chain attack after the likes of Sunspot, Sunburst, and Teardrop has been found. Symantec has named this fourth variant Raindrop, and they say the malware was used only during the very last stages of an intrusion and deployed only on networks of very few selected targets. Symantec says it's only encountered Raindrop 4 times in the cases that it has investigated. Symantec says that in some cases, the hackers, chose to deploy the Raindrop malware strain instead of the more widely used Teardrop strain. Despite being different strains, Symantec said that the two backdoors had similar functionality, which the company described as being a loader for the Cobalt Strike beacon, which the intruders later used to escalate and broaden their access inside of the hacked IT network. While both Raindrop and Teardrop were used for the same purpose, Symantec says that some differences also exist between the two, most being under the hood at the code level. And the article provided in the show notes on ZDNet has a really great table that kind of lays out a very simple view of what the differences are. Symantec said that the more widely used Teardrop was installed directly by the Sunburst malware, while Raindrop seemingly mysteriously appeared on the systems where Sunburst was found. There is no direct evidence that Sunburst triggered the installations. So not only are our big friends like Fireeye and others being hit by SolarWinds, Malwarebytes has also been infected. Malwarebytes just recently discovered that they were a victim of the SolarWinds attack. except that it wasn't targeted through the SolarWinds platform. And a quote from Malwarebytes, they state that while Malwarebytes does not use SolarWinds, we, like many other companies, were recently targeted by the same threat actor. Instead of using the SolarWinds Orion network management system, the APT abused applications with privileged access to Microsoft Office 365 and Azure environments. Specifically, in this case, an email protection application. In a quote from the CTO, what started out as the SolarWinds attack is slowly turning out to be perhaps the most sophisticated and wide-reaching cyber campaign we have ever seen. It encompasses multiple companies used as backdoors to other companies and numerous tools and novel attack methods. This is far more than SolarWinds. So why would SolarWinds be going after companies such as Malwarebytes or potentially any other security companies? Because their software runs on multiple platforms, and multiple sensitive computer systems likely have something like Malwarebytes or something akin to it installed. Those programs have agents that run, most of them in the background or with some other cloud connection that runs back to other servers and run privileged commands, thus allowing the escalation of privileges to occur. All right, let's move on from SolarWinds. In England, laptops were given out to vulnerable children that contained malware. Some laptops given out in England to support vulnerable children homeschooling during the lockdowns of the past year contained malware, according to the BBC. Teachers shared details in an online forum about suspicious files found on devices sent to a Bradford school. The malware, which they said appeared to be contacting Russian servers, is believed to have been found on laptops given out to a handful of schools. The Department of Education said it was aware and urgently investigating. According to the forum, the Windows laptops contained the Gramrule.I worm, identified by Microsoft as far back as 2012. The government so far has sent schools more than 800,000 laptops as it tries to distribute more than 1 million devices to disadvantaged pupils who may not have access at home. A quote from the Deputy Director of Education and Learning at the Bradford Council: upon unboxing and preparing them, it was discovered that a number of the laptops were infected with a self-propagating network worm. The Deputy Director recommended that schools also check their networks as an added precaution. And information security consultants told the BBC that the worm presents a very severe threat to any PC or network. Ideally, users should boot into safe mode and run a full scan with an antivirus product as a potential mitigation. However, with this type of malware, it's advisable to seek professional assistance in order to ensure it's been correctly removed. This particular worm installs spyware which can gather information about browsing habits as well as harvest personal information, such as banking credentials. CISA has a new public awareness campaign. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency on this past Thursday rolled out a new public awareness campaign to push back against ransomware attacks that have increasingly targeted government and national education systems. The campaign includes working collaboratively with the public sector and private sector partners to understand, develop, and share timely information about the varied and disruptive ransomware threats. Anyone can be a victim to the ransomware, and so everyone should take steps to protect their systems, according to the CISA director, Brandon Wales. The campaign will involve CISA stepping up its efforts to inform organizations across various sectors about resources available to counter or prevent ransomware attacks, including training and webinars, and through CISA issuing alerts around ransomware concerns when deemed necessary. The campaign is particularly focused on the K-12 institutions, which have been hit hard by the ransomware attack during the COVID-19 pandemic. As many of the classrooms have moved online, and as organizations involved in supporting COVID-19 response have had to use more and more internet-connected means of communication. CISA is not alone in this effort. The Ransomware Task Force, a nonprofit formed last month, includes companies such as Microsoft, Fireeye, and McAfee, are all working together to create a roadmap of policy ideas to counter ransomware attacks, which have also increasingly hit vulnerable hospitals during the pandemic. And with that in mind, CHWAPI Hospital in Belgium has been hacked and has lost access to its data. The hospital in Belgium is suffering from a cyber attack where threat actors claim to have encrypted 40 servers and 100 terabytes of data using Windows BitLocker. The hospital has had to redirect patients to other hospitals and delay surgical procedures. While the hospital services are slowly recovering and surgical operations have begun to resume, CHWAPI continues to cancel some services and redirect urgent cases to other hospitals. CHWAPI has stated that patient data has not been compromised. The attackers seemingly encrypted 80 out of 300 servers, but the hospital did not receive a ransomware demand. The attackers contacted media outlet Bleeping Computer and stated they use Windows BitLocker, and after encrypting the devices, the attackers say they left ransom notes named ransom.txt on the domain controllers and the backup servers. In a quote from the attackers, "We attacked CHWAPI Hospital in Belgium 2 days ago and set up a ransomware notes on servers." This is how they wrote it, so their English is broken, which should tell you a little bit about where they may be from. But IT management team not give this information to hospital management. Hospital management make up press release and said there is no ransom note, but this is a lie. Something is going on. Unquote. The threat actors also told Bleeping Computer that they do not encrypt every device on the network and only target servers holding large amounts of files, such as file servers and backup servers. To communicate with the victims, the hacking group claims to create the ransom notes containing a bit message ID that can be used to negotiate a ransom. The group states they are not part of a ransomware as a service and do not steal or leak data. We have an update on the EMA COVID-19 vaccine hack. The European Medicines Agency, EMA, announced last week that some of the stolen Pfizer BioNTech vaccine candidate data was doctored by threat actors before being leaked online with the end goal of undermining the public's trust in the vaccine. A quote from EMA representatives: "The ongoing investigation of the cyber attack on EMA revealed that some of the unlawfully accessed documents related to the COVID-19 medicines and vaccines have been leaked on the internet. This includes internal confidential email correspondence dating from November relating to evaluation processes for COVID-19 vaccines." Unquote. EMA revealed that the COVID-19 vaccine data stolen in December was leaked online in a previous update. Sources have told the press that the leaked data archives included email screenshots, EMA peer review comments, as well as Word, PDF, and PowerPoint documents. The screenshots show the intent of the threat actor behind the leak was to highlight that the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine was fake, confirming to EMA's disclosure that the leaked documents were manipulated with the purpose of weakening trust in vaccines. EMA also discovered that the data breach was limited to a single IT app, with the threat actors behind this attack primarily targeting data related to COVID-19 vaccines and medicines only. And finally, the FBI is issuing a warning on vishing. Now, vishing is something we talk about in my class for cybersecurity risk management. It's also known as voice phishing and is a social engineering attack where attackers impersonate a trusted entity during a voice call to persuade their targets into revealing sensitive information of whatever nature they're trying to seek. One interesting note about vishing in the past couple of years is that deepfakes audio has been used at least once in a banking fraud attempt. The warning the FBI has issued is on ongoing attacks attempting to steal corporate accounts and credentials for network access and privileged escalation from U.S. and international-based employees. According to the private industry notification shared this past Friday, the threat actors are using voice-over IP platforms to target employees of companies worldwide, ignoring their corporate level. Quote, during COVID-19's shelter-in-place and social distancing orders, many companies had to quickly adapt to changing environments and technology, the pin reads. With these restrictions, network access and privilege escalation may not be fully monitored, unquote. The attackers have tricked the targeted employees into logging into a phishing website they controlled to harvest their usernames and passwords. And in multiple cases, once they have gained access to the company's network, the threat actors gain greater network access than expected, allowing them to escalate privileges using the compromised employees' accounts. In at least one instance, the cybercriminals found an employee via the company's chat room and convinced the individual to log into the fake VPN page operated by the cybercriminals. The attackers used credentials to log into the company's VPN and performed reconnaissance to locate someone with higher privileges. The cybercriminals were looking for employees who could perform username and email changes and found an employee through a cloud-based payroll service. And this is the second major pin issued by the FBI on vishing, the first one coming this past August. To help companies and employees mitigate this type of phishing attack, the FBI has shared a series of recommendations. Implement multi-factor authentication for accessing employee accounts. When new employees are hired, network access should be granted on a least privileged scale, with periodic review of this network access for all employees. Actively scanning and monitoring for unauthorized access or modifications can also help detect the possible compromise. Network segmentation should also be implemented to break up one large network into multiple smaller networks, and administrators should be issued 2 accounts. One, with their admin privileges to make the system changes necessary, and the other for their general use of email, deploying updates, and generating reports. That's all for the news this week. I'm your professor of cyber risk. We'll talk again soon. If you like this podcast, share it with your colleagues and friends. Your support is how we are able to continue to grow and provide this content. Thank you.